can't tell me which way you want it to go.
What we do is we record what our speaker says, and you can even have your people back and listen. We do English and Nepal.
It's on.
John, make sure the mic's working.
Jeff, introduce him.
Pat. Introduce Pastor Simon.
Yeah.
It's okay. I got it. So I think I'm in there, right?
Yeah.
You see me on the edge?
You are.
Hey, so welcome to Pharaoh Ministries. This is Pastor Jeff Lancaster here at the house of Merlin and Carolyn McIntyre. We have an amazing man of God here, Pastor Simon from Nepal, one of the church leaders in the nation of Nepal. We are so blessed. He is Pastor Bashu's father-in-law. We are so blessed that he's here with us, and he's going to share a word from his very heart tonight. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Pastor Simon. God bless you, sir, and thank you for coming to join us tonight.
Yes, amen.
Thank you for the opportunity that you have given me. Let me share a little bit about myself, then about the ministry. Before then, I want to thank Marlin for inviting me to this meeting. I know Marlin for a number of years, and also I know Bob. So these two men have been to Nepal a number of times. So they are a man of God. And
I've been to your house 7 times, and this is the first time you've been to my house.
yeah,
So you owe me 6 more times.
thank you.
7 times.
So Marlin is a man of prayer. We really appreciate how God has used him through prayer. So our church members have really appreciated that. And Bob is a man of teaching. He's a very good teacher from the Word of God. And I myself have been greatly blessed by your teaching. So thank you for that.
For those that don't know, Pastor Simon many times is the interpreter for Bob. So
Yeah.
Pastor Simon can't go to sleep. He has to stay awake for the whole time, right, Pastor?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I suppose I'm not going to preach from the Bible. I'm just sharing what God has been doing in Nepal. About myself, I have a wife, and she's here now. I mean, in Seattle, living with her daughter, with Basu, and so I've come with her. We have 4 children, 2 sons and 2 daughters. We have 8 grandchildren. So God has blessed us with this big extended family. Our children are scattered. Our daughter and her family lives in Seattle, and our son lives in Australia with his family. Then one son, he lives in another town in Nepal, and then youngest daughter and her family also live in Kathmandu. I was born and brought up in a Hindu family. Up in the village in Kathmandu, in the district of Nepal. From my childhood, I was interested about God and goddesses, because in the Hindu culture we have so many gods and goddesses. So my father was a very religious man. So I was well impressed by the way how my father lived, and I wanted to become a Hindu scholar later on. we call Pandit. So I was studying Sanskrit language, but somehow I left that school, and it happened that I went to another school. I came to know that it was run by a mission, and there I heard about Jesus, and I heard that Jesus is God, and Jesus loves people. Jesus forgives sinners, and like that. Although I did not know much about him in at that time, still I became interested to learn more and more about Jesus. It happened that I went to a small fellowship, a church they called, and there I saw people were singing and people were praying. It was very strange for me because I was brought up in the Hindu culture, and it was quite strange for that to see uh, the way how people prayed and read from the Bible, although I did not understand much. Later on, I became interested to go again to that church, and then I attended the Bible study with others, fellow friends, because I was studying in that school, and uh, the teacher who was uh, uh, teaching, um, I mean, one of the teachers was a Christian, and he was leading Bible study. And at that time, I um wanted, I mean, I asked a question about Jesus. I asked him, how do you know that you have got salvation? How do you know that uh, you know Jesus, that Jesus has come in your heart? So the teacher kindly explained to me about Jesus, and he said, yes, if you repent of your sins, if you realize that you are the sinner, if you ask Jesus for forgiveness of your sins, if you ask Jesus to come in your heart, then you know that Jesus will come in your heart. So I was interested because from my childhood, I was interested to know a true God, who really God is. And one day I know that uh, in course of time I decided to accept, to invite Jesus in my heart. So I was alone. I was at that time 17, 18 years old in high school. So after I prayed to Jesus, something happened in my life, and I was full of joy.
Amen.
And then I was alone, and I said, from today, I became Christian. I'm a Christian.
Wow.
So although I did not know much about Christianity, I did not know much about the Bible, but I knew that Jesus came in my heart. So that was the beginning of my journey. Of course, it was very hard for me in those days because it was way back in 1964. So you can imagine how old I am now. At that time, I was 17 years old. Um, then so I accepted Christ uh, on that day, and uh, the journey began. So also it happened that I had to move to another town because up to that time I was living in a village. It happened that in a town called Butwal, which is south north southwest of Kathmandu. There, uh, a training was going on, so I was asked whether I would be interested to get that, and that's a technical training. So somehow I became interested, and there I found some Christians, and there I began to know more about the Bible, and then I began to grow in my faith. So in course of time, some other friends also became interested, and they became Christians, and then a church was started in that town. Today, that town has more than uh, 40 churches.
Wow.
And my church, where I mean, which I pastor, I mean, I'm the founder pastor of that church, is the largest church in that town. So, um, yeah, um, to make my story short, I I was a founder pastor of that church. Later on, I did some theological studies, and so on. And while I was doing technical training, also I was a pastor. Later on, I became uh, 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 director of the technical institute where I got training. Then some years later, I became a full-time pastor, and then in course of time, I was invited by another organization to take the leadership. I went to Kathmandu. Then I became the general secretary of the National Churches Fellowship of Nepal. That's umbrella organization, church organization, which has about 4,000 churches now. So I was general secretary for almost 14 years, and then I became president of that organization. Now um, I'm retired from that organization. So I'm still pastor, senior pastor of the churches. Um, so God has given me this ministry, pastoral ministry. So from time to time, I go to different towns and cities and teach the pastors and leaders. And well, I have my own church. Also, I'm involved in a media ministry. Now, there's a ministry called A Message of Hope Nepal. Uh, main main objective of that ministry is to spread the gospel through media. Having said this, I have to tell a little bit about the country situation. You know, Nepal was known as a the only Hindu state in the world. So for many years, Christianity was not was forbidden to come to Nepal. So only after 1950, the door was opened when there was a political revolution, and that revolution was successful to overthrow the dictatorship which was ruling until that period, and the democracy was established, introduced in Nepal. That opened the door for the gospel in Nepal, and a number of missionaries were allowed to come to Nepal and start some of their activities, such as hospitals, schools, and those things. As I said, I happened to study in one of the uh, mission schools. And that's where I accepted Christ. So after 1951, 50, Nepal was open for the gospel. But for many years, uh, Christians were very few because Christianity was very strange for Nepal, and so it was difficult for them to accept the gospel. But later on, uh, I mean, in those days, although there were few Christians, but still they were praying that the gospel will penetrate in the nation, and there are people who are praying in the border to Indian side, and later on they went in and they started various activities, and then slowly a number of fellowship were started, some in Kathmandu and some in other towns and cities, and gradually a number of churches grew. And again in 1962, um, a king at that time, he banned the multi-party system, and he introduced um, a new constitution. The constitution tells clearly that Nepal is a Hindu state, and therefore no other religion is allowed to praise. Um and therefore, in the law was anti-conversion law was introduced. According to the law, anybody who changes his religion into Christianity or Islam, he is liable to go to prison for 1 year. If anybody is found converting other people, is liable to go to prison for 6 years. So that was a law, anti-conversion law. So according to the law, many Christians were put into prison. So that was in 1962. Then another partyless system started in Nepal, which was very hard, especially for Christians. So during that period, it happened that in 1978, when I was found baptizing other person, I was arrested, and together with me, the 14 other believers were arrested. So uh, we went to police custody. We spent there for 1 month. Later on, we were taken to the court. I was sentenced for 6 years imprisonment. Uh, but then it was possible that I could be released on bail. So again, we paid money for bail, and the case went on and on for a number of years. We are praying that God will do something in the nation, that there will be some changes. So it happened again in 1990 when another revolution, political people revolution, took place, which was against the partyless system. So that was again successful. We prayed for that, and we believe that God answered to our prayers. And therefore, after 1990, um, the law uh, became, I mean, was slightly changed, although Nepal still remained a Hindu state. But there was a freedom, more freedom, and churches were established uh, in many places, and the gospel uh, was being spread uh, very fast, and many villages, whole village, and became Christian. So that was good thing that after 1919. So still, uh, still it was not full freedom. and but there was some change. We were able to organize some combined meetings, crusade like that, and also uh, uh, the churches were free to have their own worship services without any disturbances, and a lot of evangelical work was going on after 1990. And I think in 1990 there were about we estimated 100,000 Christians, and uh, today we estimate there are almost 2 million Christians. So we know that, yeah, now, yes, yes.
Good
Uh,
question.
What's the total population?
30 million.
30 million?
30 million people now, population, I mean, total population. So anyway, to make my talk very short, God has worked in Nepal, and we believe that Nepal is one of the countries where the churches are growing very fast. And uh, in uh, in 1995 or so, we at that time I was General Secretary of the National Churches Fellowship of Nepal. I went to a government radio station and asked to ask permission so that we could use a national radio to preach the gospel. Um, I mean, I went there for a number of times, uh, but it was not possible. They said that we don't allow our national radio to preach Christianity. And I said, well, now, according to the constitution, Nepal is a multi-party system, democratic system. Why not we uh, use Radio Nepal? We call Radio Nepal to preach to share our message. But he said, show me the constitution which says that Christians are allowed to preach the Christianity. So that was quite hard. Still, I followed up and we prayed for this, and time came again in 2006. Another political movement took place. That was the movement was against the monarchy system. Monarchy system in Nepal. For many years, Nepal was ruled by kings. So kings are supposed to be Hindu leaders, and because there is monarchy system, Hinduism will remain there, and Nepal will remain the Hindu state. That was the understanding. So in 2006, as I said, that another movement, we call people movement, took place, and that was against the monarchy system, and that was again successful. And that brought great change in the country. One change was that Nepal declared as a republic country. That means no more monarchy. So that was a big change in the history of Nepal. Then it was declared Nepal as secular state. I mean, secular state, we understand that all Christians, all religions are equal. So that was great change in Nepal, and in the history of Christianity. It was a great day for us also. Then we Radio Nepal, as I said, they called me, they phoned me, said now Nepal has declared it's a secular state. You come and write your application and discuss with us what you are going to say through radio. So it was a great thing for me also, not only for me, but also for the whole churches in Nepal. So I went and I was asked what I'm going to present, uh, what I'm going to speak through radio, and I said purely Christian message because I'm a Christian. I preach from the Bible. They said, okay, now it is a secular state. That is possible, but only thing that you don't touch politics, you don't talk about other religions. As long as you do that, that's fine. You can preach. So they asked me to give the message what I preach. So that need to be sanctioned. And for 2, 3 times they sanctioned, and later on they said, "Oh, okay, no problem. Your message is good." Like that, and so ever since then, that's one thing that I have been speaking from Radio Nepal. This is government radio, a national radio. It goes across Nepal.
Since 2006.
That is right. Yes, in 2006. So
It goes farther than Nepal
12 years.
because that goes into Bhutan too.
that's right. Sometimes it goes beyond
Because I've
Nepal
talked to people
also.
that heard him
Yes.
in another
Mm.
country.
So, having said this, we are greatly encouraged, that God has done something more than what we have expected. And now people all of Nepal can hear the message we call message of hope. They hear gospel of Jesus Christ. And many people, they write letters, respond the message, and many people have become Christians by listening radio. And of course, after that, there are other FM stations. The other churches also have started the gospel broadcasting work. And those are in the FM stations. Our FM station, as you know, it is only within the certain areas, whereas Radio Nepal, it goes across Nepal. So this is something that God has helped us to start, but it is a great challenge as it's quite costly. We are praying for this, for the sustainability of this. And once a week, on every Saturday evening, we do broadcast this message. And also for the last 2 years, we have been using television, a national television also to broadcast the message. And so far we have been doing this. And again, it's a great challenge that we have to continue this. Yeah, so I'm involved in those ministries. Basically, I'm pastor. I'm pastoring, and then I'm also involved in this media ministry. Then we have another ministry which was founded by Basu, which is called Reach the Nation Nepal. So we have been doing some training program as a part of the Reach the Nation Nepal, where Marlin and Bob has been there, and they have established a training center in East Nepal.
Yes.
And this is good, and
Good place.
we are thankful to all who have helped so far. And again, there's a need of continued help and prayer, so that we hoping that many pastors and leaders will get the training there. So that's our hope. Yeah. Yeah, I think I shared about the ministry that I'm involved with. Maybe you have some questions, and I can answer that. And
I have a question. So is the government, you're not getting any government opposition right now?
Mhm. Okay, good question. I did not finish that. I should have finished that. In 2006, Nepal declared a secular state, but the constitution was some interim constitution, because the new constitution was going to be made after some years. It took some years, and because it was not stated in the constitution, it was just a declaration, and it was an interim. You understand that? Um, so we did hope that the word secular state will appear in the constitution. 2 years ago, the new constitution came, and we hope that the constitution will state Nepal as a secular state. Yes, it is stated, but there was a pressure before before publishing or declaring the constitution, because there was a number of parties, they were still against the secular state. They were they were trying to change Nepal back to a Hindu state. So still, some parties are behind this. So because of the pressure, it happened that the constitution, it says Nepal is a secular state in one clause, and at the same time, they have given some explanation of the secular state. The explanation says that the secular means any person is free to practice his religion which has come from his tradition. You understand that?
That's awesome.
That is not a freedom.
No.
you say it again?
It says every person, that is, it says Hinduism, even Christian, you can say that person is free to practice his own religion which has come from his forefathers.
That's which has come from.
So you have
Which
to,
is,
you have to keep the religion of your parents.
yes. So a Hindu can become a Hindu. That doesn't make any sense, you know. Right. He is free to practice his religion. So there's no freedom.
Yeah,
Right.
the freedom.
So that is where we are now. And according to the constitution, they have made another anti-conversion law now, which is going to be implemented in the coming month of August. So after that, what will happen, we don't know. Yes, please.
Yes, it seems to me that you would encounter some violent radical groups that are doing things illegally and persecuting the Christian church. Are there gangs or members of the Hindu religion that are radical like that?
Yes, there are fundamental, the Hindus, radicals, you could say, yes. Those are behind this, and they want to bring Nepal again back to the Hindu state.
Right. Are they violent though? Or do they
I can't say violent.
Oh,
I cannot say. I mean, there are some places, it depends on the place where you live. There are some villages up in the villages that are violent. If there are a few Christians, it will be very difficult for them to live as a Christian. and they get a lot of pressure. You know, pressures come from the relatives, pressures come from the neighbors, pressures come, you know, from the society, and pressures come also from religious group, Hindu fundamentalists. So that is the situation there. Yes, yes.
You may have already said it, but I may not have heard it, but approximately, do you know approximately how many Christians there are in Japan?
Yes, we estimate that out of 30 million, we estimate about 2 millions are Christians, and it is growing.
And how many churches?
We estimate about 10,000 churches.
But Pastor, I've met many people that have Jesus in their heart,
Hmm.
but they do not talk about it
It is true.
because
Yes,
because it would cost them a job or be ostracized from their family. You know,
yes,
you've been through all that yourself.
yes, yes.
By the way, this man's family was one of the most prominent families in all of Nepal. I mean, landholders and everything. These are the Brahmins. He didn't even get in all this stuff, but these guys. Anyway,
Yeah.
I met a lot of men that can't say quietly that they've accepted Christ. They've told me this privately.
Yeah, there are many Christians uh, who don't uh, who don't um profess openly, and inside they are Christians. Within the church, they say yes, they are Christian, but outside, sometime they find hard to declare themselves as Christian. Um, Again, it depends because of Nepal is a country where there are many different castes and tribes. You know, as Marlene said, uh, I belong to Brahmin caste, and Brahmin caste supposed to be the higher caste, and mainly there are four caste classes. You could say that Brahmins and Kshatris, Vaishya, and Sudras. That Sudras is low caste. Basically, these four castes are there, but there are many tribal groups. More than 100 tribal groups in Nepal, and some tribes, tribal group, they have their own language, and they have their own religions also. But I mean, Hinduism is considered as a dominant religion, and so for some caste, some groups, no problem, they can declare they are Christian. Whereas for others, it is hard. For example, our caste. If some Brahmin become Christian, um, if he goes to his village, and he must be very bold enough to say that he is a Christian. That's the situation. And there are some other tribal groups. There are many churches belong. I mean, Christians belong to that group. I would say that, and for them there is no problem.
What does the Hindu think of the Christian? That they're their enemy or what?
No, they are not. They don't think that way enemies, but there are certain of the conversion. They have been threatened that because over the past many years, many churches have been established and planted, and many Hindus have become Christians. And the fear is that if they give, if it continues, then the Hinduism one day will disappear, and that is the main threat. Uh, so and that is one thing that they are not happy with the conversion, you know. And they said, if you are Christian, that's fine. You live as a Christian, but you don't preach.
Don't say anything.
Don't say anything. Don't say anything about Christianity. Don't preach. That's the thing.
Yeah,
So-
I was that way though.
Yeah,
I was the same way.
you could.
I don't want to hear what you got to say.
Okay, okay, yeah. But if you, I mean, I know that you are Christian,
Yeah.
and you have found Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
If you have found Jesus Christ, your life have been changed not because of your religion, but because of Christ.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Personal relation.
Yes. Okay. Then, if you think of other religion of Hindus, they will not be changed by their religion, only by accepting Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
You will believe that there is no other way to go to heaven, but only by Jesus Christ. Right?
Yeah. Amen.
So this is why we preach. That's what I asked. I mean, I am been interrogated by a number of journalists, number of time. Why have you become Christian? Why do you preach Christianity? That's the two questions they asked me. I said, well, because my religion did not save me. Christ saved me.
Amen.
That's my answer. Then I said, I preach the gospel because, firstly, if I have found this thing good and truth, the only good thing, then I have to share this to other people.
Right.
This is why I preach. Also, I saw the Bible, where Jesus said in Matthew 28, go and preach the gospel.
Yeah.
So because of that, I have to obey what Christ tells me to do. Yes, please.
Are people no longer in prison because of preaching or because of being a pastor? Are they no longer in prison or are they?
Recently, there has been number of incident, as you ask, because after 2006, there were only very few people were arrested, because if they went to the temples to preach the gospel, and a number of people they protested, and they reported to the police, and they said that these people they preach the Christianity, they interfered to our religion. Then police had to take action. So there were some people who were arrested. Only few they were released.
Mhm.
But then recently, what happened is that the people know that new anti-conversion law is being introduced, which is going to be implemented soon. And they are saying that now the situation is changing, and you cannot preach the Christianity. Therefore, in some way, villages recently it happened in one of the cities of West Nepal, where I came to know that a mother and her daughter were arrested and put in the custody because the blame was that they went to another family and they preached um, Christianity. They forced them to become Christian. So that was a blame. And so because of that, the mother and her daughter, they were arrested. I do not know exactly the situation now. This has happened recently. And also this happened in another village that when some teachers, they were running school, children home. Teacher was, of course, is a Christian, the Christian home, and he gave a book about Jesus Christ to the children to read. It was some kind of illustration, a picture, and so suddenly some police went there and they found, oh, these people are making these children Christians, and therefore the police arrested three, I think 5 teachers at the spot, and they were there for almost. They were in the prison for almost say 3 months or so, and they have been released now. Yes.
What happened? You told about how you were baptizing someone and then you got arrested and some of the other people that were there. But did you ever have to go to prison?
I did not have to go to prison. I went to police custody. I was there for 1 month. After that, I was taken to the court, and there, according to the court verdict, myself and other three were sentenced for 6 years. Then we had a lawyer, and uh, he was, I mean, mm, fighting for us, and we had to pay the bail to be released. And so the case, we had to go report to the court every month. The accusation was that I converted other people. I converted myself, and I converted other people. But our version was that I was the main person to be accused, and I said that yes, I converted. I have become Christian because when I believed Jesus Christ, I was converted. But converting other people, other person, I cannot do that. That is up to him. He believed Jesus Christ. He was converted.
Yeah.
So that was that was my version, and the government lawyer version was that I converted that. So that is why the case uh, was going on for a number of years.
But they finally dropped it.
Finally dropped, yes, in 1990. In 2078 the case started, and in 1990 when the uh, uh, whole system was changed, because at that time Nepal was a partyless system, but in 1990 the multi-party system. Along with the multi-party system, all the religious cases were dismissed. Yeah. Thank you for asking that question.
I have a question. In First Corinthians, it says this. I'm sure you're familiar with it. For Jews demand signs and Greeks seek wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and folly to Gentiles. But to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. And my question for you is, when you preach to the Nepali people, what part of the Christian message grabs their heart and appeals to them? And what part of the Christian message is most difficult to help them understand? Because if we're not in your culture, I want to understand the culture
Mhm.
of your people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I preach the gospel. Uh, of course, in the church, we have Christians and sometimes non-Christians, so no problem to preach in the church, because our main focus is the Christian. I teach the Bible, right? But when I preach through radio, I preach the gospel. Every time I preach, I quote John 3:16 about. I tell them the God's love. Then for the last few months, my subject is change. So what makes change? So I focus on the main subject, change. How a man's heart is changed. Not no religion can change.
Yeah.
No teaching from about the culture or any scholars can change the heart of the people, but only Jesus. So that's my main teaching.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
And they understand that, and that
Yeah,
draws
those who
them.
understand, they are drawn. Those who reject, they reject.
What is the
Sure.
most difficult? Like, what do you feel like you have to teach very carefully so it's clear to the people?
Yes, I must be very careful not to touch other religion.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. I don't criticize other religion
Yes.
because I also was a Hindu before. I know, and I don't. I don't criticize other religion. No, neither Buddhists nor Hindus nor Muslims, but I only preach Christ. That's all.
So,
I got two questions.
Yes.
I want to know about how strong, Maoist communists, is that a good thing for us to get, because they want to have a voice too?
Hmm.
Does that help Christianity, because they're they want the freedom to be able to talk to the Maoist communists? And
Yeah.
what is the most important needs that you see that you want us to pray about, or what are your needs? What is a Christian need there that you'd like to see changed soon this year? What is on your heart? What are you praying for? What can we agree with you?
Yeah. Well, your question about the Maoist, uh, definitely they are uh, they are against the spiritual um, things. They don't believe God as such. But same to other parties also. We don't get support from any political parties. As far as I am concerned, all political parties are same because they no parties support Christianity, right?
Yeah.
But about the Maoist group, although they I would say they are atheists, so they played very important role to bring the change in the nation. I would say that God used the Maoist party to bring Nepal to secular state.
That's what
Yeah.
I had a feeling in my
Yeah.
prayers. I thought, why do I like these Maoists?
And to be and to tell the truth, that many Maoists, during the insurgency, you understand, for almost 10 years, uh, Nepal was going through some kind of a uh, uh, civil war. Uh, so during those days, many people were killed. Many uh, security people, police, armies were killed. Many Maoist people were killed, and many political parties also, party people also were killed. But many Maoist people have become Christian
Hallelujah.
in those days because they went to church to find shelter. They were run, to save their life
They were
from the
running for
police,
their lives.
yeah.
their life. And they went to the church and they asked for shelter, and they found somebody to pray for them. And many people have become Christian. I would say that. And another question, what was it?
No, I just want to know what's on your heart.
Okay.
What is on the heart of
Yeah,
Christians
yeah.
over there? What
Well-
what are your number one, number two, number three?
I would appreciate your prayer for the cancellation of this new law that has been made, anti-conversion law. This is something we are praying, and I hope you'll join with us, and that this anti-conversion law will be cancelled. That's one thing. Then, of course, Christians, the churches are growing rapidly, which is good. But at the same time, we also feel that there should be that we should come together. We should not be scattered, divided into different groups, and so that's something we sometimes it is hindering the people because the people in the government they said, you Christians have been divided, and you are not. You come with other Christians together. That's They said that. So that's something which, of course, I suppose even in this nation, that you have been divided into different denominations, different groups, and so on. So that is a problem also in Nepal. So I would appreciate that you will pray for this. Then, of course, uh, the churches are growing very rapidly. We also need trained people, trained leaders, so that they can teach the congregation. Uh, they can give proper teaching from the Word of God. So that's something which, and yeah, there of course, yeah, please.
How much influence does the BHP have on what's going on? BHP is the radical Hindu party for India.
Mm, mm.
And it seems like this whole law coming up must be some influence of the BHP, right?
That is true. That is true. There is uh, quite a big influence in Nepal because now Prime Minister of India, Modi, has gone to Nepal.
Oh,
Mm.
wow.
Yeah, and he's very he's going to be highly welcomed in south part of Nepal. South part of Nepal, as you know, we call Madisis. They are originally from, Indian origin people, and they support uh, BJP so much, and BJP also has encouraged them some years ago to block, to do the blockade in Nepal. So for many months, uh, that we didn't get the fuel uh, from India, and we had to suffer. And they got encouragement from the BJP. That's the situation there. But yes, having said this, you are right that there is a big influence from BJP to India to Nepal. There are some Hindu fundamentalists in Hindu fundamentals in Nepal who speak very highly of Prime Minister of India, and yes, this morning I was reading an article written by one Englishman. I think he's working in India. Long article saying that in now BJP is in the process of uh, uh, changing India into Hindu country, Hindu nation. So if that happen, that will bring more influence in the past. Yeah, that's something we should pray. Yes, please.
Spiritual darkness
Yes.
in high places.
Yeah, please.
Merlin mentioned that he has met many Christian people that have become Christian, but they're afraid to talk about it, right? So how does evangelism occur in India? I'm assuming you don't have crusades.
In Nepal.
Did I say India? What did I say? I meant Nepal.
Well, India and Nepal are both.
Okay. Anyway, so I imagine you don't have
She's
big
wondering how
crusades.
how the
do they
gospel gets
evangelize?
spread.
Yes, yes, yeah. There are a number of ways how gospel is being spread. One thing is local churches. Every local church is very active of evangelism. So there is no need of crusade or big event for that. So even my church members, they are active. They invite their friends, their relatives to the church, and they share the gospel wherever they get opportunity. That's very effective. And then churches are involved in planting new churches. Uh, for example, my own church, we call mother church and daughter churches, and we have planted over the past number of years about 25 daughter churches. So that's how it is spreading the gospel. Then, of course, how people become Christians. We can't change the people's heart, but how people become interested. God has worked in different ways. We have seen that many villages, people are illiterate. They don't read. They can't read the Bible. But they hear that Jesus heals. They hear that Jesus does the miracles, and so they come to Christ, and they believe Jesus Christ. They have been healed. I know one village where one lady first became Christian when she was seriously ill, and the doctor has said that she will not survive; she will die. But still, there are some Christian doctors. They prayed for her, and she was healed, and she knew that God healed her. And because of her testimony, whole village had become Christian. And that's just an example. I said, uh, yeah. And now, I mean, many young people attract other young people. That's how uh, the gospel is being spread. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
How about your family? How did they respond to you becoming a Christian?
Well, my family, my wife, uh, we married when we were little kids. I would say I was 16 years old, and my daughter was 11 years old. I'm sorry,
Your wife.
my wife was a daughter. I'm sorry. My
They
my
married really young over there.
my uh,
Oh my goodness.
my wife was 11 years old. In those days, that was a culture in the Brahmin society.
Well, did you live
And
by
so
yourselves?
then at that time, there was no chance to be Christian.
No, they
Right.
didn't live together.
Yeah. We didn't live together for some time because I went for studies, and then after some time we met, and I said I become Christian. I asked her whether she is interested. For us, it took some time for me to teach her, and after that, she also accepted Christ. So then, other members of the family, my parents and my brothers, and we have a big family. Uh, at first, it was not possible, and they rejected. And even I was considered as a second class member of the family. And so, um, but because I didn't have to live in the family for some long time, I didn't face so much trouble. But I knew that it was hard. And later on, God worked again in the family. Now, uh, many of my uh, relatives, my nephews, uh, have become Christians. Even in my own village, we have a church there, so that is good. Yeah.
But generally speaking, when you accept Christ, if you have an older brother or a father, they rule the family. And if the father and the brother don't want you to be a Christian, you got a problem. You're ostracized in many, many ways.
Hmm.
Many times you're even asked to leave. I think that's even probably true today in some families. Some Boshes.
Yeah, some family.
Yeah. If if I was from other tribal group, I think whole uh, family members, whole village would become Christian. But because I belong to Brahmin family, it took quite long time for some of the members of the family to become Christian. Still, there are many who are not Christian. They don't oppose, but it is very hard for them to become Christian. So, yeah, yes.
Bashir has told us that the Hindus have many, many, many gods. Is it hard when you preach the gospel? Is it hard for them to understand? One God. I
Mm.
mean, as opposed to many. Is that a big that a hard transition for them? I mean, I don't know.
Well, that's one thing where I mean, one thing that caused me to think seriously and to decide Jesus to accept as my savior, because I was taught there are so many gods and goddesses,
Yeah.
and I worshipped two different gods and goddesses for some time, but I was confused. I became confused, and I didn't know who is true God, and therefore I wanted that answer. Who will give that answer? And that ultimately that led me to Jesus.
Must
And
have been
yes,
kind of a relief, really.
yes,
Not
yeah,
have to please all those many, many gods.
no. So I mean, uh, when you preach about Jesus, you don't teach anything about the gods and goddesses. We only preach about Jesus. That's all.
But
Yeah.
I just wondered, when you're
Right.
one-on-one with someone, do they ask you questions about that? And, you know, is it hard for them to understand one God as opposed to many?
Sorry, I couldn't correctly
If
understand.
you were in a conversation privately,
Okay.
privately.
Yes,
Is
yes.
the
Leading someone to
question.
the Lord.
Yes, okay. Yes. In the conversation, yeah, it happened many times. Uh, they asked me why you change your religion, why you have to change uh, from Hinduism to Christian, why you have to become Christian, uh, and what is wrong with Hinduism. Then I get opportunity to tell that I believe only one God, true God, and I don't believe so many gods and goddesses. And they try to explain to me that there are mainly three gods: Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. They call, Uh, I said that uh, there's only true God, only one true God. So whether you accept or not, that's up to you. But I believe only one true God. So then uh, either they have to believe that, or they follow what they believe. But, most cases they follow. They don't want to accept because changing. And there are some people I know that when I tell about one true God, they are interested. They wanted to know more, and they accept Christ. But there are many who are, what you call that prejudice. Uh, you know, they have in their mind they will not accept Christ because they don't want to leave their religion, and they only want to make me into trap. That's all. So, yeah, when this happened, I have to tell them about true God. Otherwise, when I preach, I don't talk about many gods and goddesses.
Let's wrap this up, you guys. You guys can talk later because people had to go home. But I want to just say that he has his own sound room and he has a person that helps him. I've been to the sound room and saw that. He was very kind to take. And his daughter is his general manager, and she's very bright and very good, isn't she? I mean, she really does, because they get thousands of questions and thousands of requests, and they want to answer every one of those and from all over. But Pastor gets up 4 a.m. This is what Bob Shoes told me. This guy, Simon, is an early riser. He studies every day. He's a PhD. He's not a lightweight. This is heavy work what he's doing because he's up against a political.
Yeah.
He's got to watch every word he says. He's got to be very accurate. I mean, he's right in the lion's den. If he says one thing wrong, he's done. They'll take it. He has to have a license.
Is that right?
He has to have his license renewed every year. So I want you to see his face, because you won't see it often, but he needs prayer.
Yeah,
Come
thank
on,
you.
you guys. This is not a game. We're not trying to entertain here. The man has to get his contract renewed every year to be on television. When he's on television, he gets to speak. He has a potential on the government television to speak to 7 million people in one city. It's called Kathmandu. That's where this man lives. But he also, on the radio, gets to cover the whole nation once a week with a similar message, but it's a little shorter. It's like 20 or 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And he raises all his own money, and he's got his son and a couple of others are his major supporters. And bucks are always tight, I'm sure. I mean, it costs money to be on television. They don't give this to you free, and the radio. And he's got a small church of under, what he got, 150 or less in your. He changes, he's always starting a new church. This guy, he's a missionary. He's an apostle. You're talking to a real live apostle. He doesn't. He's been chancellor of university. He's done all these things. I mean, you're talking to a Billy Graham. Nobody does anything. Like, they want to have a food drive, they get him on the board for the whole nation. If they want to do something in the nation, they make sure they got this man on his board. This man is well respected in his country, but he doesn't do it with his hands up in the air. He does it with prayer. He must do a lot of prayer, huh, Pastor?
Yeah.
And a lot of time in the Word. He's very careful what he says. You notice how he watches every word he even says here. So there's something to learn here, he doesn't flap his mouth like I'm trying to learn not to do. We don't know how much longer we're going to have freedom in this country. The elections would have went different. We might have lost our freedom here.
Amen.
I'm telling you guys, we're not that far away from it, but I have a lot of respect for the pastor. Pastor Simon, you've been through a lot.
Thank you.
And I just don't want people to take this lightly. There's not very many men like him in the world.
That's right.
He's a leader of all in Nepal. Every Christian and every pastor looks up to this man in Nepal. Am I right, Bakshu?
Yeah.
If he comes
recently somebody gave in the interview in a television, a very powerful television, very like a Anderson Cooper or something, very powerful interview. And he mentioned his name and he blamed him. In Nepal, only one man is making Christian. He's a Simon Panday. He mentioned that publicly. He's making Christian.
Yeah.
He's against in the interview.
Yeah.
It means we need a lot of cover to put in a prayer.
Bakshu and I, we had a communist guy who was number 3 in the nation.